Hello everyone. Let's jump straight into resource risks in risk management planning. In a professional sense, resource risk refers to the potential that the necessary resources, human, financial, physical, or material, will be unavailable, insufficient, or perform poorly, impacting the project success. In very simple words, this means the project is at risk because the right resources might not show up at the right time. You've probably seen this at the office. Key people are suddenly busy, budgets are paused, or tools arrive late. I have seen solid plans fall apart simply because resources were assumed, not confirmed. Stay with me here. No matter how good the plan is, resources make it real. So now that we understand what resource risks are, you might be wondering where these risks actually come from in real projects. Well, that brings us right into their common sources. Resource risks often come from limited availability, overcommitment, skill gaps, budget constraints, or shared resources across multiple projects. In everyday English, this means too much work and not enough people, money, or tools. Let's break this down together. I once worked on a project where one expert was assigned to 3 projects at the same time. On paper, everything looked fine. In reality, nothing moved because that person was a bottleneck. You've probably seen this at the office. Everyone assumes the same person will somehow manage. Stay with me here. Resource risk usually starts with optimistic assumptions. So now that we understand where resource risks come from, you might be wondering how they actually show up during execution. And that leads us straight into early warning signs. Resource risks usually show up as delays, burnout, quality issues, or constant rescheduling of work. In simple language, this means people are stretched too thin or key resources are missing. Let's break this down together. If tasks keep slipping because that person is unavailable, that's a clear signal. I've seen teams work late nights not because the work was hard, but because staffing was unrealistic. You've probably felt this pressure yourself. Stay with me here. Resource risks quietly drain performance before they cause visible failure. So now that we know how resource risks appear, you might be wondering how we can spot them early during planning. Which brings us into identification. Resource risks are identified by reviewing resource plans, availability calendars, skill requirements, and planning assumptions. In everyday English, this means checking whether your plan matches real life. Let's break this down together. Do we truly have these people full-time? Do they really have the skills we are counting on? What happens if someone leaves or gets pulled into another priority? I once asked a team who would replace a critical engineer, and the silence gave me the answer. You've probably seen this too. Backup plans are often missing. Stay with me here. Visibility reduces surprises. So now that we understand how to identify resource risks, you might be wondering how to actually manage and reduce them. And that takes us into response strategies. Managing resource risks means planning backups, balancing workloads, securing commitments, and protecting contingency. In simple words, this means don't depend on one person, one tool, or one assumption. Let's break this down together. Cross-training team members, confirming availability in writing, and keeping time or budget buffers can save a project. I've seen teams recover simply by redistributing work early instead of pushing harder later. You've probably experienced how small adjustments reduce stress. Stay with me here. Resource risks respond best to proactive planning. So now that we know how to manage them, you might be wondering how to keep resource risks under control as things change. And that brings us to ongoing monitoring. Resource risks must be continuously monitored as priorities, workloads, and organizational needs change. In everyday English, this means resource plans are living plans, not fixed promises. People leave, new projects start, and budgets shift. I have seen successful teams regularly review who is available and who is overloaded instead of assuming everything stayed the same. That habit allows quick adjustment instead of last-minute panic. When resource risks are tracked openly, projects adapt instead of stalling. So now that we walked through what resource risks are, where they come from, how they appear, how to identify them, how to manage them, and how to monitor them, you can clearly see how realistic resource planning keeps projects moving steadily instead of slowly breaking down. We are going to discuss funding risks in details in next chapter.